Leaders of nations across the globe have come together to address extreme poverty and climate change at the Global Citizen Now Summit. I spoke to Michael McCormack, Shadow Minister for International Development and the Pacific in New York a short time ago. Thank you so much for your time, Shadow Minister. You moderated an event at the Global Citizen Now Summit called Reimagining Development Cooperation, a fireside conversation with global leaders. Can you tell us a bit about it and who was there and what was discussed?
Yes, Janie, it was a powerful chat. We had Stephen Harper, the former Prime Minister of Canada, Erna Solberg, former PM of Norway, and Stefan Löfven, who headed up Sweden, of course, not that long ago, as well as representatives from Ghana, Zambia, and a room full of powerful advocates. And we discussed debt. Of course, it's an issue right around the world, the infrastructure that we obviously need, particularly in developing countries, and poverty and homelessness. But one of the powerful messages that resonated around the room was the need to feed the world. And of course, we know in Australia we're produce far more food than we could ever use domestically, and we're a trading nation, we're a nation which provides food to the world, and so many other nations, Canada of course as well. But how can we make sure that farmers in the future are able to feed a growing and hungry population globally? And that was one of the big things. I note that Asma Latif, who was one of the advocates in the room earlier in the day, talked about, she's from Bread for the World, by the way, talked about smallholder farmers being empowered, particularly women, to be able to produce food. And I know that's something that both we as the coalition government and certainly the Labor government now, and they provided an additional $25 million after I lobbied very hard and earnestly for the Horn of Africa. 15 million of that is going to the Horn of Africa, 5 million is going to Pakistan floods and 5 to Yemen. But it's empowering these smallholder farmers is going to be, I think, the key to the future, where we do need to be able to feed the world, and it's going to be a growing population, as we all know.
And as you mentioned, there was a diverse number of participants, including many in business and philanthropy. Why is it so important for businesses to engage in these types of forums and on these issues?
Well, Global Citizen is opening itself up to making sure that business knows that it has a responsibility and an obligation to provide assistance, certainly when it comes to the climate challenge, to provide assistance when it comes to making sure that we've got the right infrastructure in the right places as part of public-private partnerships. Now, I know when I was the infrastructure minister in Australia, that was something that we looked at very earnestly and hard. And it's across the world, particularly in developing countries. It shouldn't just be the role of development banks. It shouldn't be just the role of governments, indeed, to provide that infrastructure. There's an obligation, and there's also ways and means for these businesses to benefit from it. Of course, they want to protect their bottom lines. Of course they do. They're bringing businesses. I used to run a business myself, and bottom line is key to success and key to continuity in the future. But this Global Citizen Forum provided avenues and ways and discussions to empower businesses to be able to do just that, to make sure that they can contribute in a meaningful and responsible way. Hugh Jackman addressed and opened the conference with quoting Nelson Mandela by saying that, you know, it's up to people across the world to tackle poverty, to do what they can, and to make sure that we do have a future which is equitable for all.
Absolutely. And quoting Nelson Mandela, he mentioned poverty is not natural, it's human-made and can be human-corrected as well. Shadow Minister, that is a powerful statement. Poverty is not natural. Can you tell us why this is an issue Australians should really care about?
Well, I think Australians do deeply care about it, and the fact that the government is providing more aid, more assistance, and of course at the moment with the Pacific being such a contested space, and I've been to Papua New Guinea, to the Federated States of Micronesia, to Vanuatu in recent months to see the situations there, and we know that the Pacific Island nations need every bit of assistance. That's why whenever there is a calamity, we're the first there with fresh water, with medical supplies, and we will continue to do that. And the Pacific Island leaders know that in Australia they have a great friend. We're all in the same backyard together. We all need to ensure that we all get along and that we're all successful, because we don't want to leave anybody behind. And, I do say that this is going to be a bigger issue going forward. And the fact that we are providing more assistance, I know in my own party room, when I wrote a particular piece about providing more foreign aid to a person, they came back to me and said, yes, this is good. What could we do more? And I was very pleased at that. The Nationals, we know how important it is to have a roof over your head. We know how important it is to make sure that we continue to grow the food that will help feed the world. We can't do it all on our own. We can't do it all ourselves as Australia, but we can contribute to these important international engagements, and we'll continue to do that. I was delighted to be at this Global Citizen Now conference, because it does make a difference. These sorts of discussions are not just talk fests. They make a real difference to people's lives.
Absolutely. And as you said, we are all one big backyard. We do have to wrap it up very soon. But finally, what were some of the other standouts from Global Citizen Now Summit? I did notice that Hugh Evans, the CEO and co-founder of Global Citizen, said, quote, if you think about other summits that happen, they're behind closed doors and citizens are excluded. Global Citizen Now is a complete opposite. It's about the power of citizens to take action. How important is it, Shadow Minister, for each and every one of us to have that chance to have a voice?
That open, frank and robust discussion is important. It's all well and good to do it behind closed doors. Global Citizen doesn't do that. They open it up to the media. I know it was trending here in the United States, certainly on the various social media platforms. That is so important. But when you consider the high-powered players that they had here, Justin Trudeau from Canada, many actors and actresses from right across the world, but indeed they had some very heavy hitters on the stage, making their contributions, making their plea to the world to be a better place, making their plea to people to join this action to ensure. And look, everything that Global Citizen says and does, they've got some interesting things. I certainly look at the trying to keep the world meat-free and dairy-free and work towards that. I'm not necessarily going to go along with that, but I tell you what, many of the discussions that we had, I very much back, very much support, and I was very pleased to be a part of that discussion, that fireside chat with some powerful figures who can really make a difference into the future. It's going to be so important.
Shadow Minister Michael McCormack, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Janie.